This episode of The Clarity Pivot is brought to you by TJB Solutions, your partner in education, creative consulting, and intentional design. Hey, family. Welcome back to The Clarity Pivot. I am your thankful host, Tavares. This is the space where I talk through the things that matter to me, the messy things, the honest things, the things we whisper about but rarely name out loud. There's no order to these pivots. It's whatever clarity life hands me in the moment. It may feel random, but the intention is steady, to grow, to heal, and to bring you along with me if you're willing to go. And while we're here, let me ground us in where this episode is headed. This is part 2, and it moves past the internal questions into lived consequences. If part 1 was about what belief systems quietly reshape inside each of us, this conversation is about what happens when those systems leave wounds. Now, let's pivot. When belief leaves a bruise. In this episode, I'm naming church hurt for what it is. Not a trend, not a grievance tour, not resistance for the sake of rebellion, but the residue left behind when theology is misused and people are asked to carry what was never theirs to bear. Let me also be clear about what this conversation is not. This is not a renunciation of God. It is not an indictment of every church or every believer. Many people, probably more than not, are genuinely nourished, protected, and empowered in faith communities, and that truth deserves respect. What this episode does is focus on impact, on what happens when spiritual spaces cause harm with the expectation of silence in return. Because clarity does not stop in understanding. Eventually, it requires us to tell the truth about what we survive. Before we go any further, I want to offer a brief note of care. This episode includes discussion of sexual exploitation, suicidal ideation, depression, and abuse within spiritual spaces. Nothing is described graphically, but the themes may be heavy for some listeners. I beg you to please take care of yourself as you listen. Pause when you need to. Step away if you must. And if this topic is not something you can hold today, that is okay. When theology hits the body. Church hurt doesn't always announce itself loudly. Sometimes it shows up as anxiety when worship begins. Sometimes as shame when you ask a genuine question. Sometimes as numbness when you try to pray. Sometimes it shows up as mistrust, not just of church, but of yourself. When harmful theology lives long enough in the body remembers even after beliefs shift. You flinch when authority speaks. You second guess your own intuition. You feel watched even when no one is watching. You see, church hurt isn't just about what happened. It's about what the environment trained your nervous system to expect. Long after you stop believing the doctrine, your body is still responding to the discipline, the surveillance, the fear, and the silence it learned to survive. For me, this is where the experience ceases to be merely theoretical. When guidance became the weapon. During my college years, I didn't just encounter bad theology. I encountered spiritual authority used as access. More than once, preachers offered guidance, mentorship, and covering, only later to try to sleep with me. Not strangers, not peers, but spiritual leaders. The weapon wasn't sex. The weapon was trust. They knew my faith, my hunger for guidance, my questions, and they knew how to frame manipulation as spiritual intimacy. The language of sonship, covering, calling, spiritual fatherhood. That language became the gateway to exploitation. At one point, I allowed a leader to move their entire family into my home, not out of pressure, but out of loyalty. out of belief that this is what faithfulness looked like. Now, that leader never tried to sleep with me, but the toxicity of spiritual fatherhood was still exploited to my detriment. My space, my generosity, my resources, my peace, all taken. And when anger finally broke through, when my nervous system could no longer survive it, I kicked the entire family out without notice. I admit, I wasn't gentle, it wasn't calm, nor was it kind. And it ruptured a friendship that never healed to the point where we were ever the same. However, that moment was not cruelty. It was survival. And then there was another leader who didn't move into my home, but moved into my life, my time, my energy, my gifts, my finances. Everything I had spiritually was harvested until dishonesty surfaced. And when it did, I realized I had been giving sacrificially to someone who was straight up lying to me to my face. When you're taught that questioning leadership equals rebellion, you really do learn to doubt yourself long before you doubt authority. That realization broke something in me. And all of that led to one moment, September the 8th, 2018. September 2018, survival, not rebellion. By 2018, I was not just tired. I wanted out. Not a break, not a sabbatical. I wanted to leave my life. Depression was no longer subtle. It sat heavy in my chest and followed me into every room. And the deepest source of that weight was not my job or my relationships. It was the culture of church and the version of God I had been taught and groomed into believing required my disappearance in exchange for worth, acknowledgement, and love. I was carrying abuse I did not yet have language for, manipulation I had mistaken for love, anger I had disciplined into silence, and it all converged into one night where the thought was not abstract anymore. There was a bottle of whiskey within reach. On the table, a mix of unfinished prescriptions, pills from different doctors, different seasons, different attempts to keep functioning. I remember looking at them and thinking less about dying and more about just being done. Done fighting, done explaining, done holding together what was breaking me. That is the part people struggle to hear. I did not want attention. I wanted relief. I wanted escape. I wanted everything to just stop. Leaving the church came after that moment, not before it. Walking away was not rebellion. It was an act of preservation. I did not leave God. I left systems that taught me God required my silence, my body, my money, my access, and my obedience without offering any form of protection in return. Thankfully, I am still here because I chose to step away. I'm still here because of a friend that randomly called that night to disrupt the pathology that had full intention of ending my life. That decision did not make me faithless. It made survival possible. Before we go any further, I want to pause right here. If this story stirred something in you, take a moment and take a breath with me. Inhale slowly. Hold for a moment. And now exhale. Notice where your body is right now. Notice the surface supporting you. Notice that you are safe in this moment. You don't have to resolve anything. You don't have to make meaning yet. Just be here. If you want to stay connected with everything I'm creating, follow me on Substack, TikTok, Instagram, and Threads at Tavares Teaches. My digital business card is in the description. This episode is sponsored by TJB Solutions, supporting education, graphic design, podcasting, and professional and creative writing. If you need clarity in your brand, your school community, or your creative projects, TJB Solutions is ready to support your vision. For more information, contact us at tjbsolutions100@gmail.com. Welcome back to the Clarity Pivot with Tavares Bussey. Now let's get back into the clarity. For those who stay, I think it's worthwhile to note that not everyone who attends church is complicit in harm. Not every congregation is unsafe, and not every person who stays is uncritical. Some churches are life-giving. Some pastors lead with accountability. Some communities make room for questions, healing, and humanity. If that is your experience, I celebrate and honor it. Howard Thurman said that faith at its best helps people discover their dignity, not diminish it. I've seen churches live that out loud, but clarity still matters here. The existence of healthy churches does not erase the reality of harmful ones. And honoring people who stay does not require silence about people who were wounded and who decide to leave. James Cone warned that when theology protects power more than it does people, it stops reflecting God. This conversation isn't about sides. It's about patterns. Some people heal inside church. Some people heal outside of it. And that is okay. Both can be faithful. Both can work. It is on you to make the decision about what is best for you. And it's others' responsibility on the outside to honor what you decide. Permission is the pivot. Healing is not uniform, and faithfulness is not measured by proximity. Trauma research reminds us that recovery begins with safety. For some, safety exists inside accountable church communities. For others, safety requires distance, sometimes for a season, sometimes longer. That is not failure. Marlene Winnell's work on religious trauma shows that stepping away from fear-based systems is often part of the healing process, not a rejection of the healing. Discernment is not disobedience. Boundaries are not bitterness. Healing is not rebellion. Even Jesus withdrew. Even Jesus challenged religious authority. Even Jesus disrupted systems that harm people in God's name. So if you needed distance to breathe, please know that you are not weak. If you stayed and rebuilt, you are not naive. If you're still deciding, you are not behind. Rather, you are listening. Healing does not require consensus. Clarity does not require permission. And God is not threatened by your honesty. So choose. And in choosing, make sure you choose wisely and that it is really you making the choice. Before we close this episode, I would like to encourage you to make the resolve to move intentionally this week through the various environments that you find yourself in during your day-to-day movements. Notice what feels safe. Notice what does not. Notice what your body tells you before your theology does. If this episode gave language to something you've been carrying quietly, share it with someone that you trust, and share this episode with someone who might need it. Connect with me across platforms at Tavares Teaches, and subscribe to my Substack for reflections and insight that don't always fit into a microphone. Thank you for listening to this episode of The Clarity Pivot. And as I reminded you in each of our previous episodes, move with intention, love with boundaries, and always choose peace like your spirit depends on it. Until next time, take care, and I'll see you at the next Clarity Pivot.